Hi, I'm Chef Ray. Welcome to my kitchen, Treasures of Food. Hi, welcome back to Chef Ray Treasures of Food. Today, I wanted to take this week's episode and honor Dr. Martin Luther King. This weekend will be the beginning of observing his national birthday, which is Monday, July the 18th. And I thought for a moment, I actually talked to my videographer, O'Shea Visuals, and I said, O'Shea, the video that we have scheduled for this Friday, I want to bump it and have it replaced by this special episode that I want to film honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. One of my favorite quotes of his basically states, the most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And I believe the times that we're in, currently in, the last year that we've been through, that quote itself is fitting today, yesterday, and tomorrow in the future. And we know exactly what Dr. King did for us. Many of us, all of us, not just for Black, brown, but for the world, and that was love and peace. So I wanted to pay respect to him, also to my grandparents, my parents, because they lived through that and actually gave me the opportunity to actually understand the meaning of dream. And as you can see in my curio, some of the awards that I've received throughout the years, but nonetheless, had it not been for them there in the beginning, I wouldn't be standing here before you actually taping my own cooking show. So I decided that I did some more research on what did he like to eat. So in doing the research, his family and friends said that he loved fried chicken, barbecue chicken, collard greens, sweet potatoes, candied sweet potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and then his favorite dessert was pecan pie and peach cobbler. Well, guess what? I've done them all today. Now it's gonna be a pretty quick, intense show because I have a large menu, as you can see, as stated, but I'm gonna go through it and we're gonna sit down. I have two special guests coming in after I get the feast ready. I have my cousins, one who is an educator and actually lived during segregation. Her name's Carolyn White, and the family lineage, her daughter, who is an attorney, Courtney White. I tell you what, everybody has a treasure in them, and I wanted to take this episode and pay respect to Dr. King, his family, his children, for the sacrifices that they paid on our behalf to allow us to be able to live the life that we do lead. Because the menu is so intense and there's quite a bit, I'm gonna start with the sweet potatoes because I actually have to boil them before we candy them. This is my method of doing sweet potatoes. I take fresh sweet potatoes, and as you can see, I already have some chopped, but basically I peel them, cut them in chunks, put them in cold water, and then my treasure, right, is I add 1 cup of sugar to the water. And the reason why is as the sweet potatoes boil down to become tender, al dente to the tooth, the water itself will take on, meaning the broth, the water will take on the sugar. So it's almost like a simple syrup that I'm doing. So basically, when we drain them, I don't have to add so much sugar back to the sweet potatoes, alrighty? During my introduction of the menu, I failed to tell you that, of course, if you're gonna have a Southern meal, you have to have buttermilk cornbread, and that was one of his favorites as well. So I just take my basic cornbread recipe, again, the treasure, and you're gonna hear it again, and you're gonna hear it over and over and over again. Swan's cake flour. Chef Ray uses it for everything. So, of course, there's cornmeal, but also there's Swan's cake flour in my cornbread. And you've got eggs, baking powder, there's a little bit of oil, no sugar. I actually use my 4x2 pans just to give it a little bit more of a cosmetic look when they bake. So we'll actually have somewhat of what you call a miniature cornbread. Cosmetically, it just looks better from a culinary standpoint. So it's a little treasure that you guys can pick up on versus just putting it in a regular loaf pan or just a round 8-inch or 9-inch pan. As I stated, Dr. King's favorite dessert was pecan pie. Nothing like Texas pecan pie. I'm gonna give you my treasures when I make my pecan pie. And I'll also, because I was doing sweet potatoes, and it's a Southern thing, I couldn't do without making my signature sweet potato pies. The treasure when I make my pecan pie, right, light corn syrup and dark corn syrup. Most recipes call for 1 cup of corn syrup. So I do 3/4 light and 1/4 dark. That's the treasure. That way it's not too dark and it's not too light. It's a really, really nice amber color. The pecan pie, sweet potato pies are ready. These little shells, you can buy them out of any local grocery. There's several different brands. The next is the peach cobbler. His next favorite dessert was peach cobbler. If you couldn't get the pecan pie to him, he loved peach cobbler. My grandmother, who lived to be 98 years old, my dad's mother, the last peach cobbler that I had of hers was when she was 97. I must have knew that was gonna be my last peach cobbler that she would give me during Easter, but it never fell. For many, many years after that, I would wake up in the spring, sometimes around Easter or before, and I swear I could smell my grandmother's peach cobbler throughout my house. So I'm gonna give you the quick treasures of my peach cobbler. First and foremost, I start with brown sugar, allspice, nutmeg, mace, M-A-C-E, cinnamon, and I use vanilla extract, which is the Watkins. If you ever had a good apple pie, right? And there's this distinctive flavor that you taste that makes a great apple pie. It's the mace. Now, it's spelled just like mace, M-A-C-E. It is the outer layer of the nutmeg. And it is a distinct flavor. Most of the time it's kind of clumpy, but you have to unclump it sometimes. I take fresh peaches, I cut them in an angle, and then there's 1/2 cup of butter. We start with brown sugar, 1/2 cup of butter, allspice, nutmeg, mace, cinnamon, and my extract. Alrighty? And then I also put 1 tablespoon of flour, just as my thickening agent, into the brown sugar. So I basically let it cook down. And as you can see, the goal is I want my peaches to stay al dente, meaning tender to the tooth. I don't like peaches overcooked because you got to keep in mind we're going to bake this. So you want to make sure your peaches are still solid as they are and they're still together versus have broken apart. Okay, so now we're going to fill our all-clad pans with the peach cobbler filling here. Man, it smells good already. Whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, it's Monday and it smells like Sunday. Actually, it smells almost like Thanksgiving in here, wouldn't you say, O'Shea?
Sure.
I blind bake my crust in the oven. Some people don't put a crust on the bottom, but I'm from the country and we love crust. That's what makes a good peach cobbler. It's all about the crust. My pastry crust here, so we're just gonna roll it out. It's about 1 inch, and then we'll cut our strips. Knife here, and I'm just gonna start cutting some strips. And I cut them about 3 inches across. Start layering them. Sometimes I tuck them. They're a little bit too long. So I got the crust on top ready to go. So I sprinkled just with a little bit of sugar. Alrighty. And then I'm gonna come back with just a hint of nutmeg over the top of it. Never can go wrong with nutmeg. I'll place them in the oven here. Alrighty, so on to the mac and cheese. So, my cheese sauce, it starts with chicken stock. I always have chicken stock setting, ready to go. So chicken stock, the treasure, I don't use heavy cream, I don't use whole milk, I use Carnation evaporated milk, alrighty? The other treasure is, once I finish mixing the mac and cheese, I put a little bit of truffle oil in there. And the last secret, so I have Velveeta cheese, cheddar, white cheddar as well, smoked Gouda. And then I also add 3 ounces of cream cheese, which really makes the sauce itself, as you can see, very, very creamy. So we're gonna add our macaroni. And what I do, I actually put a little bit of oil in the mac, and I go ahead and I actually salt and pepper the mac. That way, when I'm finishing the mac and cheese, I don't have to go back and make too many adjustments. Alrighty, so I've got more than enough noodles here. So we're gonna blend it in here. And as you can see, it is pretty creamy. We're gonna add just a hint of truffle oil. Okay, a little bit goes a long way. If you put too much, it'll take on the full taste of the truffle. You just want something to give it a distinct taste on the back end of the palate. Alrighty, just a couple teaspoons of chicken stock, thin it down just a little. I'm gonna finish it with just a little bit of cracked black pepper. Now we're gonna put it in our baking dish. I've got quite a bit here, so I'll have to get another dish as well, but there we go. Cheddar on top. Put it in your grater here and just grate you some cheddar. All right, I'll place it in the oven. And our sweet potatoes. And the goal is to cook them to al dente, meaning tender to the tooth, because now I'm gonna make a quick little brown sugar glaze that we're gonna glaze them with. So I've taken quarter cup of butter and I've melted it down. I've added my brown sugar. I'm gonna add my extract, my vanilla. My nutmeg, allspice, my mace, and my cinnamon. So that's brown sugar. We're gonna put a couple pinches of just some white sugar in there. And because I love nutmeg, it's all about nutmeg, I add a little bit more nutmeg. A little bit of chicken stock just to thin out the sugar. We're gonna pour just a little bit more of the brown, simple syrup over it. Okay, so now it's time for us to take the cornbread out the oven. It's ready to go. It gives that old cornbread a completely different look when you bake them in individual pans. So we're gonna put our sweet potatoes in the oven and we're gonna let them simmer down and absorb the sauce. Okay, so we're gonna do a lollipop drumstick. Dr. King loved fried chicken and he also loved barbecue chicken. So what I did was, I've got chicken wings we're gonna fry, and I did the lollipop drumsticks. I barbecued those. And basically, to make a lollipop drumstick, you're gonna take the drumstick with a sharp paring knife, and you're gonna cut it right there at the top in a circular motion, which is what I did. And then I'm gonna pull this down. The treasure is that what most people don't know, in high school, my high school job from my freshman year to my senior year, I fried chicken at the local chicken shack. It was called Pennington's Fried Chicken. And it was on the main strip when you would come into Freeport. So I'm going to take the recipe that we used and tell you some of the treasures that I've changed on it. If you ever came into my restaurant for Sunday brunch, people would kill for my fried chicken because it was so light and crispy. So I'm gonna tell you exactly how I did that. I've got my paper bag, and within the bag, again, the secret to my light fried chicken is I don't use all-purpose, I use cake flour. So there's cake flour, sifted as well. It's important to sift. There's a little bit of S&P in the flour, and then also I put a teaspoon of baking powder to make it flaky. We're gonna do a quick, simple egg wash, which I'm gonna take 2 eggs. whisk it together here. I'll take it. Take it up real good. I'm gonna pull it out the fat fryer here, and it's golden brown and succulent. It's ready to go. And I actually fold my wings back. That's just rule of thumb. When I fried chicken for 4 years in high school, it was all about presentation. You don't necessarily have to fold the wings back, but I do. The king was a lover of barbecue. Here's our lollipop drumsticks. The last thing we're gonna do to complete the meal is we're gonna saute our collards real quick. So I'll take some infused garlic oil here. We've got our pan pretty hot. I'll take some fresh onions, red and green bell peppers. So saute them down real quick. Okay, so I've taken my fresh collards and basically I just shredded them, cut them, fine chopped them. I know there's several different ways that I do them. Sometimes we boil them down and a bunch of fat back, but I decided to keep it healthy today. So I'm going to basically saute them down real quick, add a little S&P. I've got my oil, my garlic oil, and then we'll finish them with just a little pinch of truffle oil. Okay, man, this has been one episode today because as you can see, we have Sunday, Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving feast ready to go, honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. And as I stated earlier, I was going to have two special guests, two individuals that are dear and near to my heart, two of my biggest supporters from day one, my cousin Carolyn, and her beautiful daughter, cousin Courtney. So when I decided to do this episode, I said, I need to find somebody that lived during that time and actually has benefited as myself and Courtney has over the years. And I said, no other than my beautiful cousin Carolyn, because she grew up in that time and now she works for Rice University in an esteemed position. So I'm going to turn the floor over to them and let them just kind of tell me a little bit about segregation, the whole meaning of MLK, and then the lineage of the family with Courtney being an attorney.
Well, thank you. That was quite an honor. That was wonderful words that you said. You know, living during the 60s and participating in things during the 60s was quite different in Houston.
Okay.
When I graduated from high school and they started all the protests, I'm looking for the water. I'm looking for the dogs to come out. None of that happened in Houston.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
No, it did not happen. So what happened is that there was a hierarchy in Houston of individuals that would talk with each other, both racial groups, and they made phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And those phone calls were the ones that made some of the decisions as to what went on.
Okay.
And at first, some tried to do the sit-ins without doing it the right way.
Right.
And someone told one of them, say, wait, we'll take care of that. And nothing happened right then, and they didn't see anything that was going to be really a visual as to what happened. But they didn't know that within those phone calls, things were being done.
Okay.
Even when they had the
So basically you're saying behind the scenes,
it was already
things are already happening. Now with Reverend Lawson, was he one of those individuals behind the scenes working on our behalf as well?
He was one of the ones behind the scenes, and the first time that they decided that they wanted to do a protest, he didn't go with them, and they didn't know why.
Oh.
And that was because decisions were made different ways.
Okay.
And with those decisions being made, everything was peaceful. Even when they had the George Floyd, I told my daughter, Courtney, I said, there won't be a riot, not here. And there never has been. So when the students wanted to go sit down and eat, about the second or third time, they just served them. Everybody else in the restaurant left. That was a different color, but they went on and served them. And then from then on, they just made decisions it would be done. There was one store my mother told me, and I said, why do you walk around Foley's and just find everything? And that's because Foley's started hiring individuals. And they were one of the ones that Hoffines and the others would talk with to make those decisions. But I'm in the midst of all of this, and I'm in the midst of all change. So what happened is that when I graduated from college, they came to us and hired everybody.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have kindergarten, but they needed kindergarten teachers, but they didn't put me in kindergarten because all my family were educators.
Exactly. So you did mention in our conversation, which I thought was amazing, but you were saying when you started teaching, your students were only, 6 to 8 years younger than you?
They were just about 10 years younger.
10 years younger.
Because it was 6th grade, they were 10 years younger. But the way that I got there was really strange. I was at a campus when I first started teaching where all of the students were predominantly African American. So the principal decided she was going to be a crossover principal. I'm a new teacher. She wanted me to go with her, so she saw something different in me. So I decided to sign over to be what you call a crossover teacher, which means I was going to cross over from predominantly African American school to one that was going to be all white.
Oh, okay.
But when I did the crossover, I was the youngest in the group. Everyone else was older than me. I was the youngest one in the group, so I became a crossover teacher. So if you look at my first picture, I'm the only African American on the picture because they integrated the schools with teachers first
before the students.
Before the students happened.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Really strange.
It's interesting, but it makes sense if you think about it.
It does make sense that things like that would happen.
Okay.
But someone was fortunate enough to be one of my students.
Okay.
You know who that is? So her dad had to sign all the papers, and that was Courtney. But Courtney can tell you what it was like because by then they were integrating students, and then she was in a magnet program. So that was the way that they started the integration with the students.
Okay.
So by the time I started at Travis Elementary, which is the school where my mom went to be a crossover teacher, my class was completely diverse. So we had every racial group represented, and that was in the 80s.
Okay.
But when I actually researched Houston Independent School District, because I actually talked to my law firm about my mom being a crossover teacher, and a lot of people don't know that Houston was different than other cities in that way. And I found out that even though they had integrated the teachers, it took decades for the actual integration to happen with students, which actually is what happened in other cities across America as well.
Oh, interesting. So, cousin, tell my followers what you currently do now.
What I do now.
I know because you've been. I usually talk to you at least twice a week, and you just got out of a major Zoom call, so.
So I have been in the classroom so long that I wanted to really train other teachers, new ones. And being in the situation where it was very diverse, I didn't know there was an achievement gap. So I decided, and I told HIC, could I do something different? Can I go and train some more teachers? And you know what? They let me do that. So I left the classroom and I did that. And I did that for about 3 years and found out that schools that still had of color didn't know everything they needed to know. They didn't even know how to get a broken computer repaired. So you know what I did? After I did that, I retired. I was retired for 2 weeks, but I was always teaching at Rice during the summer. And I'm teaching teachers, all racial groups at the same time. And there are some things they just don't know. So they come for the pedagogy and how to utilize that pedagogy, as well as the technology to utilize with it. So I left that job and went to Rice, and then I started working full time. There are not very many elementary teachers that know how to really get the teachers involved and get them interested in education and getting them to like math. Like, did you like math when you were in school?
Well, I can't say. I know I had to have it. I mean, the farthest I went in math was trig. So.
Well, that was good last time. Well, calculus could go after that, but part of trig now is in calculus. They do it quite differently.
Yeah, exactly.
But helping teachers to love mathematics, helping those teachers of color to understand what they need to do with their students and stop the achievement gap.
Yeah, exactly. So, cousin, I see that you have your beautiful pecan.
Yes.
I think that it would only make sense that we acknowledge your sorority belongings, that she's an AKA, and her soror sister on January the 20th, here less than 9 days, will be our Madam Vice President.
Yes, and also an interesting fact is that Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated's Founders Day is actually January 15th, which is Martin Luther King's exact birthday. Yeah.
Which is Friday.
Yeah, so it's on the
awesome.
same day.
My cousin Carolyn, she's lived it. She's a testimony. And the word dream, they do come true. And I just wanted to take this week's episode and pay respect to Dr. Martin Luther King for the gift that he's given me, he's given all of us, and that is understanding of togetherness, unity, and love. As I stated earlier, one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King is, life's most persistent question is, what are you doing for others? And I think we all need to ask each other that in this day and time. What are you doing for others? To the King family, I want to say thank you once again to his children. And I think I did some justice today. I have my relatives here, so I'm hoping they'll take most of it home with them, along with O'Shea. Again, I want to go back through Dr. King's favorite foods, Southern foods that he loved, just in case you want to prepare a meal on this weekend honoring Dr. King. Of course, we've got his fried chicken, the mac and cheese, buttermilk cornbread, barbecue chicken, collard greens, sweet potatoes, and of course his favorite dessert, pecan pie, peach cobbler, and I threw in sweet potato just because I know that it would be a treasure. Last but not least, I want to thank my two beautiful cousins for coming spending the afternoon with me. I know that it's COVID. My cousin actually just had her first round of vaccine shots. So cousin, I thank you and honor you for trusting to come into my home, because I know you have not been anywhere. And as well as cousin Courtney. The last time I saw you was for your beautiful 40th birthday. And so hopefully this year we'll be able to do 40 plus 1 and have a great celebration for you. Alrighty. Thanks again and happy MLK Day. Thank you, King family.